Hey.
How's everyone doing? You're here to do something interesting, something fun. You're here to think about ideas of justice. You're here to learn about art, to learn about a particular type of collection.
I don't think they're really going to do
Yeah.
anything.
We're going to start now.
Okay.
So I'm Kevin. I'm the Director of Faculty Affairs in the Provost's office. I'll tell you quickly about myself and then I'll introduce the other folks that are more important for you to talk with today. So I'm the Partnership Liaison for the Rubin Museum, also known as the Rubin. And I have the unique opportunity to work with many of the staff there and to think about their collection and to learn about their exhibits and to bring that information to our students and our faculty, to think about ways you can incorporate that in your own learning, but also ways in which our faculty can incorporate that into their teaching and learning experiences with you. One part of that is that I get to manage this writing competition. You know a little bit about that because you're already here, so you're interested, you read the emails, you've talked to your faculty, so you're thinking about that. So that's an important part of why you're here. The other thing I get to do is to work with the faculty to think about the collection again and how we might use it in curriculum broadly, but certainly particularly think about our mission. What's our mission at John Jay? What do we do? Say it again? Say it. Educate for justice, right? We do a lot of things with justice, but one thing we certainly do is we educate for justice. So we have an opportunity to really think broadly about what that means in interesting ways and expansive ways. And the Rubin is one of the ways and one of the partnerships and tools that we have that allow us to do that. Normally I have to talk more about the essay competition and I'll certainly answer any logistical questions, but because I have the luxury of having my partner in crime, or partner in justice, as she first think of herself, partner in justice, the head of adult and academic programs.
That's right.
At the Rubin, Laura, so she'll tell you about the Rubin and sort of take you on a journey with that experience. And then I also have George here with me. And George will tell you about herself. And Elizabeth Kaler is a person who has sent out the emails, and she's the program manager who works with me in our office on a number of things, including student evaluations, which we'll bug you about at another time, to ensure that your voice is heard in terms of how you find your learning experience to happen here. But Elizabeth is the person who will email you from time to time to say, oh, we're having another session. Here's the latest information about the Rubin. Here's another collection that's out on exhibit that you might want to think about as you go down this path to visit the museum and write your essays, so on and so forth. I'll turn it over to Laura, but I'll say one thing and then she'll talk to you again about anything she wants, including the collection, and also as a partner with me from the beginning of the essay competition, she can also be a resource for that conversation as well. But what I want to highlight for students that I find particularly meaningful, besides the collection, but particularly about this writing competition, is that the folks who've won have had backgrounds in art, have had no background in art, have been students that are English majors, students who are not English majors, students who see themselves as great writers, students who think of themselves as not being able to write well at all. So the reality is that we have a wide bandwidth here, right, for opportunity to engage with the museum and then do well. And I think the real sort of kernel, or at least takeaway for me as someone who's read all these essays over the last few years, is that students who go and engage deeply, whatever that means for you, it's not in an art history way, engage deeply where you need to know the art in that sort of way, but what resonates with you as you walk around, as you talk to the guides, as you talk to the staff that Laura has there, whatever resonates with you, if you kind of go with that deeply, you tend to write a very successful essay because it's meaningful and it has impact. So again, we had I highlight one winner that always stands out, and I think he was our first winner. He wrote about restorative justice, and he looked at a number of the pieces, and what resonated for him was some of the comic books that were downstairs in a certain part of the museum. And so he looked at comics that were helping him to think about ideas of justice. Some of the other winners had no background, again, in art history, but had a background in some minimal journalism. So whatever your sort of vantage point is with the museum and also with writing that you bring here, don't feel that you're at a disadvantage as long as you go with this meaningfully. So I'm not going to say much more until you're ready to ask me questions, but again, I'm Kevin Nesbitt. It's nice to meet you all. And we'll definitely ask you to tell us your names in a moment, but I'll let Laura lead with that part of the conversation.
Great, thank you.
Laura.
Wonderful springboard right into the program. I'm Laura Lombard. I'm the head of adult and academic programs at the Rubin Museum. And one of the things I love about my job is being able to reach out to folks like you and encourage you to think about engaging with our collection in really creative ways. The museum has learned a lot from this type of program and others where we start to see our own collection through new eyes, through the way that you bring your experiences and interests. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the museum right now. And for those of you who've been, this will be a review. For those of you that have not, you can look forward to coming to the museum. And this is not what you'll find there, the tallest Himalayan mountain range in the world, but you will find art that very much is inspired by this vast mountain range. We are a museum that focuses on Himalayan Asia. So that's northern India, Nepal, Tibet, and Bhutan. And much of the art focuses on the power of mountains, the vastness of mountains, the way mountains represent a kind of symbolic climb to the top of whatever it is that you seek to achieve. And in this context, it's spiritual kind of attainment. So they play a very big role in the art itself. And you'll see that, for example, on the piece on the right, this actually represents a mountain form right here. And it replicates on the ground a beautiful mountain form in India that was built to mirror the tall mountains that you see in the Himalayan mountain range. So we have an art form, we have an actual temple, and then we have the mountains. And behind this particular temple, it's the Mahabodhi Temple, is a tree. And under that tree, it's believed 2,600 years ago, the historical Buddha attained his awakening. So this is a very sacred site. And when people would go to this site, they circumambulate, they walk around this temple, they feel the energy from the tree, particularly those that were very much inclined to this practice, and then they might purchase something like this and bring it home as a memento and as a way of centering themselves. So you'll see the mountain form is something that plays a big role in our art frequently at the museum. Let's just go to the next arrow here. It's a little jumpy. And of course, one of the things that you'll find as well is the beautiful collection of art. And about 80% of our art is Tibetan Buddhist in nature. And the monk that you see in the bottom left is constructing a sand mandala out of sand. And it's a form of a very deep meditation that he's doing. And he starts in the center and he works his way out. And as he's pouring the sand, he's meditating. And he's meditating not only to enlighten his own mind and heart, to awaken the Buddha nature within himself for infinite compassion, but he's generating this energy to the entire world. And at the end, it's swept up, and the sand is put into a body of water to release that energy, positive energy, into the environment. So it's a very beautiful practice that's meant to be a blessing not only for those that are doing it, but those who watch as well. So you can see we just actually had our family day yesterday at the museum. We have these twice a year. And we had a monk that was constructing a sand mandala. And we could have families watch it. And it's a deeply meditative process. You can even, when you sit down and watch them, the sound of this metal, what's called a chakra, this funnel, with this other metal funnel rubbing against it, it creates this wonderful kind of rhythm. And you just feel like you're drawn right into this sacred circle. You go up into the galleries and you'll find this on our third floor. These are 4 mandalas, all in one painting. And it's as if you're a bird flying over 4 different buildings. And they have these gardens around the outside. And then these are 4 walls, and then a dome on the top. So we're flying over the top of 4 different buildings with gardens, and the tippy top of the mountain or the building are deities, and they reside inside these sacred palaces. So these have been constructed as a form of meditation for very advanced practitioners. But for those of us that may not be a part of this tradition, we can still look at it and feel a tremendous sense of peace, and yet at the same time energy that's emanating from it. And if you go to our website, you can pull up information about the more intricate symbology behind the colors, but you can also feel the sense of what it's like to practice in a way that's about balancing the body and mind. And you can see that symmetry is a big part of this art form. You find it actually in the construction of the building itself. When you come, and of course I hope everyone does, you'll see there's this beautiful spiral staircase that's arcing upward through this sort of almost, it's not quite a perfect circle, it's more kind of ovoid. And around it are these 4 walls, and it forms a mandala, the same structure that the monks were constructing. And our galleries are symmetrically around that structure. So I encourage you, when you come to the museum, to really be open to the experience of what it feels like to walk into that space, to walk up those stairs, which are very much designed to feel like you are on a kind of journey, to feel what the lighting and the wall colors are like, and then feel yourself drawn to specific works of art. And don't worry too much about finding something that you think will impress us. Let yourself really feel like you're taken into this process. And just through that intention, you'll arrive at some piece that'll really kind of captivate you. There's so much there that something, I promise, will kind of jump out at you. And that's the one to go for. Hinduism is also a big part of our collection. There's about 30% of our art on view represents various Hindu gods. This is one of the most spectacular ones. This is on our 3rd floor. Is anybody familiar with this particular deity? Durga? Well, you can see she's got all of these arms, right? She's a superhero, multitasker. She's like, if you want an extra hand to get something done, you can envision Durga. And not only is she a superhero, but she's always beautifully dressed, has this fantastic hairstyle that she always wears. And in this particular example, she's leaping from the back of a lion to the back of a buffalo. Right? And she's defeating the demon Mahishasura. And she's doing that not because she's defeating necessarily an outward obstacle, although the demon can represent that. Water buffaloes are a serious problem in this part of the world. But she also represents defeating these inner obstacles we have. Fear, regret, all the things that really inhibit us from moving forward. So she's a very powerful kind of deity, both for inner and outer work. I also recommend that you explore our other galleries. We have a temporary exhibition that's up through the middle of April, and it's beautiful, and you can have some sense of the quality of what it's like to actually meditate from the Tibetan Buddhist perspective. And you see this figure right here as part of this exhibition, the All-Knowing Buddha. From his heart, he's generating sounds and symbols, this blue lotus, a moon, a sun. This sort of interesting looking form, it's actually a metal scepter that cuts through all illusions. And then this wonderful light. And he's envisioning all of these different symbols to help focus his mind and generate very positive energy. And the more you do this, the more you become like a Buddha. So what these 54 album leaves represent is really a storyboard that the practitioner follows, like an inner movie. And you generate that in your mind and through your heart, and the more you do that, the more you become like a Buddha. So it's a wonderful educational tool, and it's a practice. Because what you think, what you intend, you realize in the world, right? We know that. What you visualize, you can become. And this is a very deep form of visualization. And it's just really lovely, too, how they're painted. The rocks, the pine trees, this is in a Chinese style. And then also take a look at our fabulous photography show up on the 4th floor. Marc Ribou is a French photographer, and he traveled across the Silk Road from Turkey to India and the Ganges, to Beijing, the Forbidden Temple. And once you've done that, hopefully you'll explore the different floors. Then I would recommend that you come back down to the 2nd and 3rd floors where our permanent collection is. And if you open the packet that I have given, I think everybody should have one. Does everybody have a packet? Kevin, would you like a packet?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. I have created, and there's more here if there's people that come late and need one. As in past years, we created a worksheet to sort of help you think about ways of connecting to our collection. By all means, this is not something that you need to follow to the letter. The worksheet is right here. Okay? Everybody want to pull that out?
We'll be dazzled by the bookmark right now.
Oh, yes. Beautiful bookmark, yes. It's a detail from one of our paintings. You'll also find catalogs about some of the fun art that's on view. Why don't we do a little review? We have a mask show opening March 13th. It's going to be masks from around the world. And I also teach adult education, so I've got my mask course in here for people that want to make masks. I invite you to come. And then this is a really fabulous tool. It's in the galleries. You can also download it from our website. It's a looking guide with all of the key symbols in it, postures, gestures that you might see, and this helps to kind of explain the visual iconography within the art that you may not be familiar with if you haven't seen a lot of art that's Buddhist and Hindu in nature, and there's a lot of shared symbolism between the two traditions. And these are very beautiful line drawings. So know that that's waiting for you. So let's turn to the sheet together, because I would really love to explain some of the tools that are available for you. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, come to the museum with a very open mind as to what is going to strike your fancy. I'm just going to talk about 4 examples, but by no means are these the only ones that we would want you to consider, because everything in the museum, particularly the traditional art forms, were made to instruct and inspire. They were made with a feeling of, frankly, social and justice in mind, of raising consciousness. So whatever you're curious about, there will be a way for you to enter into that piece. And let the piece speak to you. Let it be a real kind of heart connection. So what I've done is listed 4 pieces that are in the galleries right now, and you'll see them with their identifying what we call wall text next to them, right? The Wheel of Existence, Sri Devi, Tara, Ganesha. And if you note, under the description of the piece, you'll see something that says HAR and then a number. HAR is Himalayan Art Resources, and that's an online archive, and every single one of our pieces has a HAR number. So when you come to the museum, find what says HAR, write down that number, and then go to the HAR website, type in the number, and you can pull up high-res images and articles about that piece. All right? So for example, looking at this piece, Wheel of Existence, the question that we've posed for you to just sort of springboard into what might be of interest to you is the notion of karma. How many people have heard of karma? What does karma mean? Let's just kind of throw that out. Let's
ultimately what you do to someone, it comes back.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Your actions have repercussions, whether they're positive or negative. Not only in this lifetime, but according to these traditions, throughout multiple lifetimes, because the Hindus and Buddhists believe that you're reincarnated. You were reborn. And you were reborn on earth to work through whatever issues you didn't work on in the previous life. So for some people that means they've got a lot of work to do. And in this case, this particular wheel of existence actually represents the possible places where you can be reborn. So this is all about karma in action, and you can think about interesting ways this would relate to social justice, right, or criminal justice, right? Pretty direct, huh? And you'll see at the center there's a pig and a rooster and a snake right here, and they're chasing each other's tails, and they're actually turning this wheel, and they're called the 3 mental poisons. And because of these mental poisons, the pig represents ignorance, the rooster represents desire, the snake represents aversion or hatred, these very strong negative feelings. They turn the wheel like a hub, and because of that, actions result. In some cases, if you commit murder or something that's quite detrimental to you and to others, you'll end up being reborn in the hell realm. If you are doing good works, good deeds, following the path of a higher consciousness, of compassion, a sense of goodwill to others, you'll be reborn in the human realm, right here. And then you also have the ghost realm, the animal realm, and the gods realms, and they're all full of different permutations of how you've lived out your life in this world. And we don't have time to go into it, but you can see that if you were intrigued by this notion of this wheel turning, if you went to Himalayan Art Resources and typed in this number, you could pull up more information about this piece. Really think about that, because karma is a deep and rich topic. All right, so next piece. It's so interesting. We have so many students that haven't necessarily written about this type of art, but they're intrigued by it. And what you're looking at is a pretty intense work of art. And when I've brought students upstairs to the galleries to show them this piece, they often think it's a demon, something negative. It's actually a very positive figure. Her name is Sri Devi, and she's a protector deity, and she represents some ancient forces in Tibet that were brought into Tibetan Buddhism quite late in the game, around the 9th century or so. But she's actually protecting these teachers from negative forces, and she's doing it with the utmost sense of intensity. She's the equivalent of a mother when a child runs out into traffic and then manages to sort of skirt their way back to the curb. The mother shakes the child and says, "Don't do that. Wake up." She's waking people up. She's the ultimate tough love figure. So if you want to think about social justice as cutting through, as she does with her knife, this wonderful flaming blade, all senses of injustice, her third eye is wide open, you might consider Sri Devi. And there are other protector deities that have different forms, but in general it's really about what we call wrathful energy. Tara, beautiful deity. She really represents the sort of gentler side of the feminine nature, and she protects practitioners, particularly Tibetan Buddhists. In this example, she's a Tibetan Buddhist priest, from fear, both internal fear and outer fear. She's a compassionate. One hand is extended to give generously to all who call her name. And if you travel in this part of the world, you'll often see people wearing amulets that are protective, dedicated to Tara. And you see her gentle smile. One foot is extended, ready to step out. She's beautiful and young looking because she represents the energy of youth, when we feel like we can just, work and be engaged and have lots of power to achieve our objectives. Ganesha. Anybody familiar with Ganesha? Have you come in contact? Yeah. Anybody have any sense of what he represents? He's an elephant-headed deity, right, with his wonderful big belly in this case. He's a remover of obstacles. And that's because elephants in this part of the world, and even further east in Asia, they're used for removing trees, building houses. They really have that power to kind of be the equivalent of bulldozers. So his energy is to remove those obstacles, both outer and inner. He also is the patron deity of beautiful writing. It's believed to, according to Hindu tradition, it's believed that he wrote the Mahabharata, this wonderful, beautiful text. So when students take an exam in India, they'll write Ganesha at the top of their paper to give them, to clear the path and to give them eloquence and clarity. It's a wonderful deity. Let's see. The next one. So that gives you some sense of how a student might relate to Ganesha. We actually, this is a pose picture for one of our brochures. I just thought, oh, isn't that nice? Same deity. You can envision yourself kind of communing with the art. Feel like you can get up close. Make sure that you stop by our shrine room on the second floor so you can see all the art as it's arrayed kind of in the style of a wealthy Tibetan home. How this art has this tremendous sense of kind of bombarding your senses. And you'll have this smell from, we can't burn incense now, but the fabrics and the furniture is just sort of impregnated with these wonderful smells. You've got little lamps that create the feeling of butter lamps, but they're electric, and you'll hear the chanting of monks. And it's just a very beautiful place to sort of go and feel like you're in a kind of cave full of wonderful dynamic energy.
We don't necessarily need to do it on one of these four, right?
Please, no. Absolutely not. In fact, this is just a way to help people think about all the different ways you might get the creative juices flowing, exactly, because each one is so different. Thank you for coming. Yeah. That it was sort of like, we just sort of thought, okay, if people understand that it could be sculpture, it could be painting, it could be Hindu, it could be Buddhist, it could be just about anything. I mean, when I sat down, I thought Ganesha, and then I realized, Ganesha would be so powerful if you wanted to work in terms of social justice. I mean, you really need to feel like you have got this obstacle remover working with you, because it's a lot of work. And we're there, we have roaming guides. We can't, necessarily propose a topic, but once you feel drawn to a piece and you think, well, this is really what I'd love to do, we can start pointing you in the direction of the materials, or we can have a conversation to help you engage, but it really has to come from you. And sometimes people come and they, particularly like 3 days before the essays due, and they start saying to our guides, what should I write about? And you all are the early birds, which is wonderful, and you're starting, at a good place. So come, maybe not just once, but multiple times, and make sure that you're really kind of looking at all the different pieces, going to the HAR website, reaching out to the roaming guides, and getting a feeling for what it is that might actually be kind of challenging for you, or new, or different. The wrathful deities. I mean, what an interesting concept, that something that looks so terrifying could be something that positive. What's it like to deal with imagery that's that strong in nature? It's kind of unusual. Usually we have, our helpers tend to have these sort of very kind of benevolent look about them. There's a lot to mind just on that figure alone. Go ahead.
Are all the pieces in the museum chronologically related, or is it possible for me to find a piece that's not, or that wouldn't normally be considered criminal justice, and for me to find a criminal justice after?
Absolutely.
Or no?
That's exactly what we love you to do.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's a creative part of this. I mean, for example, I learned working with faculty and students from John Jay that really the Buddha was all about restorative justice. And I never thought of him that way. He allowed anybody to be a part of his circle of students, what's called the Sangha. He allowed prostitutes, he allowed murderers. He believed that everybody had the capacity to achieve the awakening that he had. And he let no one out, which was, at the time, revolutionary back in India when he was practicing 2,600 years ago. So, it's, again, what you bring to this process is something that's really been exciting for us. We learn from you as well.